How's it going, everyone? Today we have a crazy story of a sus mixed-gendered sleepover that was super uncomfortable. It went into totally normal, took a really weird turn. This story is super awkward and cringy, so if you leave a like on the video right now, I will give you a pair of cringe goggles that will protect you from the cringe of this story because it's super uncomfortable. If you don't leave a like, you really put yourself up to risk. But with that all being said, let's jump into the story. All right, so we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story, we're going to call him Kevin. Anyways, so this is when Kevin was a sophomore in high school. You know, he's now in college and is looking back on the story in a really fond way, like, oh, what a funny time. That was hilarious that happened. But let me just say, in the moment when this happened to Kevin, he was not laughing it off. He was not laughing it off at all. Anyways, so this happened sophomore year for Kevin. And to give a little bit of context, I'm going to throw in a couple characters. So Kevin's best friend, we're going to call him Ben. And yes, bring back the name Ben, not for the evil character this time, for a good character. So for all the people who've been watching my stories named Ben, finally, this is your redemption. Ben is the name of a good guy, or at least so you think, right? Anyways, right, so Kevin and Ben have been friends for a while, and there was this group of girls that they were also friends with. And I'm going to get into the names later, but let's just call the two other girls Kate and Rosie. Keep it nice and simple. So there's Ben, Kevin, Kate, and Rosie. And they've been friendly for basically the last 6 to 7 months or so. Cue the 6-7 jokes. I know. But they've been friends for about 6 or 7 months at this point. And, you know, they started to kind of like get along freshman year. I don't know exactly the specifics of how they came together, but they were pretty friendly. They got along really well. And the dynamic was like pretty platonic. Like it really was something where they would just, they would just hang out. They would just have a good time. And yeah, there was really nothing more to that than they were just hanging out and they were friends. And the parents also were kind of like, yeah, like, whatever, like guys and girls can be friends. That's totally fine. And let me actually say, when I was in high school and in middle school, I had a lot, and actually still to this day, what am I saying? Like still to this day, I have a lot of really good platonic female friendships. Look, I am going to say, sometimes guys and girls, they can be friends. There is always a chance of there is some kind of attraction. I will say that happens more often than not. But that also doesn't mean that it happens every single time. Because I have a lot of I'm friends with a lot of girls that I have actual genuinely great friendships with, and I have no interest in a romantic relationship. And I think, honestly, having friends of different genders is a great experience because if you're a guy and you don't have any girls that you're friends with, guy friendships and girl friendships are very different. You're almost missing out. But anyways, this is kind of what Ben and Kevin's parents really kind of thought. I guess Kate and Rosie's parents thought as well. And that was kind of the group dynamic. But deep down, Kevin had a big thing for Rosie. A huge thing, right? And he never expressed it because he didn't want to ruin the group dynamic. So about midway through sophomore year, it was coming to around actually this time of year. It's why Kevin recently submitted the story, which, by the way, if you are listening on YouTube or Spotify and you personally have a story that you want to submit for the channel, go to Instagram, look up Connor Pugs. I post a lot on there and I actually have a huge audience on there. That's kind of different from this. But message me, follow me first, and then message me your story. Tell me it in full. Anyways, part of the reason why Kevin told me this story pretty recently is it was about this time of year, sophomore year. So it was actually a little bit after this. So Thanksgiving break was over and they were going through kind of like the finals. And since they all live near each other, it's Christmas break, which I always love Christmas break. It's always a really fun time. Where Kevin lives, same with me. It was cold. It was kind of snowy. It was kind of, I celebrate Christmas. So did Kevin. So it kind of has that really nice vibe to it that you just kind of like. Anyways, though, they were kind of having a conversation. It was Kevin, Ben, Kate, and Rosie were kind of hanging out one day at school, studying for finals. And like in between them studying, they kind of had a little break and they were having a conversation. And that's when Rosie threw out there like, hey, like, wouldn't it be fun if we had a sleepover? So, normal kind of like with same gender sleepovers are pretty common. But I will say I've actually had a couple mixed gender sleepovers myself, and this was like totally platonic. It's not what you're thinking. Relax. But it's a fun experience because like it's almost like it's fun. I'm gonna be honest, it's fun. But I also can understand if parents are gonna have reservations of a mixed gender sleepover. I can also totally get that. I was cool that my parents and the parents of people I was friends with kind of understood the game and the situation and realized that it wasn't that deep and also nothing bad was going to happen. And I will say it's honestly quite fun. So Rosie throws up the idea, hey, what are your thoughts on having a mixed gender sleepover? So of course, like all of them were like, yeah, of course. And you know, in the back of Kevin's head, he's like, oh, wouldn't that be just a great opportunity for me to, you know, not make my, okay, not an opportunity to make the move because that would probably be the worst wouldn't be, we'll talk about that later. But Kevin was at least excited because, you know, it's an opportunity to be like, oh my God, a girl slept over, ha ha ha, even if it, you know, didn't mean it, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say? Like he's getting a little excited. He's feeling a little good about himself. He's excited for it. And yeah, so sure enough, right, they kind of talk about it. Kate's like, yeah, but are our parents going to allow us to do this? So they're kind of just, you know, they talk back and forth. They're like, hey, like, they've known we've been friends for a while. I'm always telling my mom about how I have this cool group of guy friends who we're literally just friends with. And my parents are pretty cool with it. And I think all of our parents kind of understand our relationship and our dynamic. And also, okay, we ask them and they say no. Okay, great. Like, we just don't have the sleepover. But it's not that, like, it doesn't really matter if they say no, but if they say yes, then that's awesome. Like, then we can have it. So, like, why don't we all go back home today and say that this was proposed and just be like, is that cool? Anyway, so sure enough, right, you know, Kevin goes back home, tells his mom, he's like, yeah, it's fine, whatever, Kevin, do what you want to do. Like, that's cool. You know, Ben's parents were cool with it too. I think Kate's parents were like a little bit like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then she had to explain it. And also Rosie's parents were fine with it. So the four of them come together and they were texting the night before the group chat and they would like announce like, my mom just said yes. Like, it's like, it's clear for me. And they had a little tally in the group chat of like 0 out of 4, 1 out of 4, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 4. And Rosie was actually the last one that night to get the approval because her parents were coming back late. And of course, this is the one that Kevin cared about the most, like objectively, because it would still have been fun if it was like him, Ben, and Kate like hanging out, having a mixed gender sleepover. But he was the most excited, obviously, about the girl he low-key had a crush on. So sure enough, right, finally, late at night comes out the 4 out of 4. Rosie just texts 4 out of 4. And then they all just are like, hell yeah, this is awesome. So they get together the next day at school. And they kind of decide that they're kind of like picking which house is going to be. And they decide that finals go and is going to happen at Rosie's parents' house. Just happens to be, you know, Rosie has the biggest house. They have like this really cool basement area. Rosie's parents are also low-key the most chill out of all of them, which is why when they got 3 out of 4, it was really Kate's parents that they were like, okay, this is the hurdle that we need to jump. Other than that, we are chilling. Yeah, so sure enough, right, that is all squared away. That is all set. And, you know, finals go by. You know, Kevin is just like the most excited guy. You like, brother is in heaven, bro. Like, he is just excited. Like, imagine, like, you get to basically have a sleepover with your friends, but then more importantly, your crush. And it's after exam. So it's almost like that was a great carrot on a stick to push him through exam season. Yeah, so anyways, finals finally go by. And it's time. So the night before, right? So this is the first, not plot twist, but like this is where the story starts coming together a little bit. So that night before, because they were coming together on that Friday, or that Saturday, but the night or the day before Friday, you know, Kevin finally had his final exam, felt great, put his pen down, handed it in, probably got a 70, but whatever, man. You know that kind of feeling of like when you probably bombed your exam, but you still feel good because it's done and you don't get your grade back for 2 weeks. So you know that you're just going to have a fire 2 weeks and then just suffer the consequences later. Like, I cared if I did well or not on my exams. I'm not saying like, oh, I didn't care, but there was this experience I had where like, not if I got a 0, but I'm like, man, I don't think that went that well, but I was still happy because I could turn it in and then go on spring break or winter break or fall break or whatever, right? I don't know if that was just me, but anyways, turns it in, And that night, to kind of like celebrate the end of the semester, he goes over, Kevin goes over to Ben's house. And because they're also just like, hey, we're just going to hang out. And then the next day, they're going to do the whole thing there. So sure enough, right, Kevin and Ben, they're hanging out. Kevin gets to Ben's house. They hop on, they get some pizza, whatever. It's just the best spirits. It's the best mood, dude. Like, they are just both very happy that things are going the way that they want to go. They're both just very happy that, the exams are done, the school year is over, and they can finally just chill and relax. They get a fire pizza. They hop on, play some Fortnite, whatever. They're chilling in Ben's kind of downstairs area. And they start just having like one of those like boys chats of like deep life. Like, those conversations with your friends where somehow you kind of vacillate from talking about the dumbest brain rot / memes, just going to like, what's the meaning of life? Like, I hope you're good, bro. Like, love you, whatever, ... And then you go back to talking about brain rot. Like, those are the best friends to have, no question. Yeah, so anyways, they start having this long kind of conversation. And that's where Ben starts talking about, like, his like, he's, thinking about some girl, whatever, doesn't know what to do. And that's when Kevin starts giving him some advice of, like, you just got to do it, blah, 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 which is a little bit ironic since Kevin was, basically in love with their friend and didn't do anything about it, didn't say anything about it, but was still giving all this game of like, oh, you need to do this, you need to talk to this person. And they were kind of just sitting there, and that's when Kevin kind of blunders a little bit here. I don't know if it's a total blunder, but he definitely reveals some information that maybe he shouldn't have revealed. He's like, yo, Ben, can I tell you something? Ben's like, yo, what's up? And they're just like mid-game or whatever. He's like, I don't know if this is going to come as a surprise, but like, I've low-key had feelings for Rosie like for the last 6 months. And Kevin just doesn't respond for a second. And then he's like, you what? And Ben says, you what? And Kevin's like, whoa, I mean, like, I think she's cool, right? And Ben's like, no, you cannot walk that back. Stand on your business, bro. If you like that girl, that's awesome. He's like, dude, like, you really inspired me with your whole thing about, like, you just got to go and do it. You got to go, like, you live once. You only live so long. Who cares if someone says no? Like, you really inspired me with that, dude. Like, I think you should do the same. And I think you should do the same tomorrow. Kevin's like, no, dude. Like, it's the sleepover. I don't want to ruin our dynamic. Like, Rosie's parents are going to tweak out because, like, I'm sure if I asked her or tell her and she's, like, doesn't feel the same way, then, she's going to tell her parents and then it ruins the whole friend thing. And he's like, dude, like, we had a good run, like, as a friend group. We had a good run, but it's time for you to, like, take your life. Like, not take your life, pause, rewind. It's time for you to take control of your life. It's time for you to really do this. Like, dude, this is what you're telling me. And like, as soon as I get back to school, I'm just going to tell this girl I've been talking on and off with that, like, I really like her. And I'm just going to make that known. Like, I'm just going to make that stuff known. And you should do the same. And Kevin's like, bro. And Ben's like, no, I'm not going to let you out on this. This is what I mean by it was a bit of a blunder. So I think Ben and that's also in the very first couple minutes of this video, I said, Ben is the good guy, but it's a little complicated. I think Ben had truly great ideas. I think he had a really great intention, that's what I meant to say. Great intention. But I think his execution, as you'll see, was not great at all. But, Ben was now in this kind of like, he in his head was like, I'm so inspired by how Kevin fired me out that, like, I have to, like, push for this. Like, it's okay. We're going to break down the friend group, friendship, whatever. It was a great time, but he needs to live his life. And I'm sure it's torturous if he's just sitting there and just, So at this point, Kevin's trying to back out a little bit because in his mind, he was like, they were just having boys' time. He needed to get this off of his chest. Not that he wanted to act on it, but unfortunately, he just had a big pep talk rally, a whole conversation with Ben about how he should go after the things he wants, that, every day time slips by and like, you will be haunted by the decisions you don't make. And low key, I'm with Kevin to an extent. I do think, like, if you're just like, oh man, like, what happens if I ask this person out? Okay, they say no. Who cares? Your heart's like kind of broken for a little bit. But then you can move on. You can talk to someone else. Is it a little embarrassing? Sure, but like it really means nothing. And if they say yes, then amazing. Like, think about this thought experiment. Let's say that the perfect person for you is 8 dates away. Because the truth is, the perfect person for you is some number of dates away. It might be 1, it might be 15, it might be 50. Hopefully it's not 50. But let's say that you knew, how many, or let's say that you are 7 no's away from a yes. What if I told you that you had 7 no's, and every single time that you would get a no from someone, you would get rejected, you'd be like, yes, I'm now 1 closer to getting that yes. The truth is, that's exactly how life works, except you don't know what that number is. And that if you never take those swings, you're always going to be some number away from that person. And it might be that person that you ask out. It might be someone 15 people away in a year and a half later, but you will never get there if you don't take the steps. So I went on a little tangent there, but I do totally agree with Kevin in that regard. However, there's a lot of caveats to that because they're in a great friend group. I will say that I really don't suggest becoming friends with someone first. It just gets really complicated really quickly. It gets to a situation where, you can unwind your friendship. I will say that, if I'm being super open about it, I've had plenty of situations. That's the thing. Guy-girl friendships can be awesome, but there is a lot, especially if you're into the opposite gender, right? There is a lot of underlying biological mechanisms going on. So you might not even intend to start to like them. I'll be honest with me. A lot of the times I was just genuinely friends with people, and sometimes, you just can't control it. I mean, you can control how you act on it, but I will say that usually that is a recipe for disaster. I know that there's all this like romanticization on TikTok of like, I only want a relationship if it's a slow burn friends to lovers. That's very uncommon. Honestly, I think it's best if you go in just saying very openly what you're interested in. Obviously, you can't control it over time, but usually if you make your feelings known and it's a no, it's a lot bigger risk because you usually gamble that friendship and you're usually going to lose it, if I'm being completely honest. What Kevin was saying earlier to Ben was that you don't really have anything with this girl. So if you get rejected, it's not that big of a deal. And if you get a yes, then it's amazing. In this situation, not really the same thing because they have a cool friendship, the 4 of them. Kevin and Rosie directly have a cool friendship, the 2 of them, and he's gambling a lot. And that's where this kind of upside downside that I was going on a whole tangent about earlier, it doesn't really play out anymore. So that's the problem here. But Ben is completely fixed on, I'm going to set these 2 up, I'm going to make it happen, and not subtle foreshadowing, if Kevin's not going to be the one who makes the move, I will make the move for him. Not like he's going to go in and like make a move on her or something, but like, I'll save that for a second, because this is where this story gets really awkward, and if you haven't already left a like to claim your free cringe goggles, I really highly suggest you do that. Highly suggest it. Anyways, sure enough, the next day comes around and Kevin's been texting Ben, like, is it like, or he hasn't been, I guess they've been, because he stayed over that night. I guess he hasn't texted him that much, but he keeps like bringing it up randomly, like, yo, bro, like, I will like tell Rosie how I feel, just not tomorrow, bro. It's like, it's the sleepover, it's at our house, like that could go so bad. And Ben's like, no, dude, like you're just chickening out, like you just don't want the most of life. And in some way, Ben was right, but also in most ways, Kevin is totally right on this. Just don't do it at the sleepover that you barely scraped by and is already very questionable. And like, yeah. Anyways, though, so eventually Kevin and Ben, they both go over to Rosie's house, and so they're walking over there. They all live in the same neighborhood, so they're just a walking distance. And they're walking over, and Ben's really trying to avoid the subject, or Kevin's really trying to avoid the subject with Ben about the whole Rosie thing. And they're about 2 minutes away. And Ben's like, man, I'm so excited for you to express your feelings for Rosie like tonight or tomorrow morning, but ideally tonight. It's going to be great, man. And Kevin's like, bro, like, I'm not doing that. And Ben's like, dude, I'm holding you to it because we're boys. Like, sometimes I got to do what's right for you, not what you want. In this situation, bro, Ben is completely wrong. I mean, tell me in the comment section down below, or if you're on Spotify, there's also a comment section. So wherever you're listening, comment down below if you think Ben is in the right here. or if you think Kevin's in the right here. I'm siding towards Kevin. Generally, I think like you should go for it, but one, you shouldn't force anyone to do it. And also two, I think this is just objectively a bad time to make this known, in my opinion. I want to hear yours. But sure enough, they walk over to the house. Rosie's parents open the door. They're like, "Oh, what's up, guys? Like, this is so fun." Like, I was never, and Rosie's mom was like, "I was never had like great guy-girl friendships when I was growing up. And I really think I missed out. So I'm so excited you guys are able to have this whole thing going on. Like, it's really amazing." Anyway, so Kevin and Ben walk inside, and this whole time, this was supposed to be something really exciting, really awesome. But Kevin just has this pit in his stomach because he is just worried, what is Ben going to do? Like, that is the biggest concern right now. What is Ben going to do when he's saying, "I'm going to force you guys to hang out. I'm going to force you to do this," blah, all that kind of stuff. What does he actually mean by that? How far is he going to go to achieve that is really the question here. Anyways, when they walk in, Rosie's parents say, "Hey, like the two girls are downstairs. Feel free to head down there." So sure enough, right, they walk down the stairs into the basement, and Kevin's mood kind of shifts a little bit from nervous to just like, you know what, this is going to be fun. I can deflect whatever Ben does. It's not that big of a deal. So sure enough, they go down. It's the basement is super cool. Kate and Rosie spent all of last night making the place look awesome and really fun. They kind of had all these games put together. They had all these like drinks, like sparkling water and stuff. They were in high school, so their parents obviously didn't say, "Here's a bunch of vodka" or something, right? It was all reasonable, all respectable, all that kind of stuff. And so all that stuff was put together. Really fun, really chill. They're kind of sitting down, talking, whatever, just having like an awesome yap sesh. I think one of Kevin's favorite things about their friend group dynamic is just like they can just rip into like the craziest like yap sessions of all time. And it's almost nothing's like doesn't skip a beat. Like it's really just awesome. It's really just a great time. So they sit down, do all that, and things are going pretty good. At this point, Kevin's a little bit less nervous. Like I think Kevin's nerves continuously go down every minute they're there just because Ben isn't hinting at anything. There's no real opportunity for things to get weird, and things are looking better. Anyways, eventually Rosie's parents come downstairs. They knock on the door, and they come down with 2 big boxes of pizza. It's super good. Anyways, they throw on something on the TV. They're just hanging out, and they're talking, right? So things are looking pretty normal. And that's when Ben decides to stir the pot a little bit. You really thought that we'd get this far and just, you know what, man, nothing ended up happening. False. It took a little while, but it's finally time for Ben to stir the pot. If you made it this far into the video, I want you to go into the comment section, either on YouTube or on Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. And I want you to comment, basement down below. That's the secret word of the day. I like seeing the names and the faces of people who made it this far into the video. If you don't know, the best thing that you can do to support the channel is just by watching these videos for a long time. Obviously, if you're on YouTube, leaving a like, subscribing, leaving a comment is all good. If you're on Spotify, following this podcast on Spotify, rating it 5 stars. So go to my profile, hit 5 stars, leaving a comment as well. But really, at the end of the day, the best thing you can do is watch these videos and just listen to them. So I really like to see the names and the faces of the people who are supporting the channel because, I've kind of taken, basically a multi-year hiatus. If you don't know, I run a business now. I do other social media things, and I'm kind of coming back to this just for the love of the game, but it would be really fun to have a comeback. I mean, come on, guys. Like, I'm going to do my best to bring prime Connor Pugs stories back. If you guys want to see really basically another prime for us as a community back in like the 2022, early 2023 Storytime days, the best thing you can do is just watch my videos. And if you want to support even farther, after this, put on another video, maybe even like put it on in the background while you're doing something else. That is actually genuinely the best way to support the channel, is just by having these videos playing. So maybe if you're going to sleep or you're going to do something else, you can pick one of the long videos or just put on a playlist. Anyways, let's get back to it because Ben's about to make things real weird. So yeah, sure enough, Ben decides to make things spicy because he was probably thinking, this is taking just too long. And so sure enough, right, he's like, "Okay, guys, let's play a game. How about truth or dare?" And bro, Kevin's basically a pit. The pit, it just like a brick falls in Kevin's stomach because he knows exactly what Ben is trying to do here. Buddy is not slick. Buddy is not sly. Knows exactly what is going on right now. He's going to do some nonsense. So sure enough, like the two girls, Kate and Rosie, are like, oh my God, that's so fun. We should absolutely do that. And Kevin is just giving Ben a stare like, really, bro? Really? And Ben is like, gives him a big wink and a smile. Because remember, Ben still thinks he's in the right, doing the right thing here. So sure enough, right, the way that they decide to do this is that since there's 4 people, they're basically going to go around in a circle. And the person, unfortunately, right, the person to the left of them is going to say like truth or dare to the other person. And if it's, they're going to pick. And this was suggested by Ben, which Kate and Rosie immediately agreed to, because sure enough, Kevin was sitting next to the left of Ben. So Ben's like, okay, I'll go first. Kevin, truth or dare? And so whenever someone says truth or dare, in my opinion, dare is the riskiest, especially if you're actually going to play the game, because at this point in Kevin's mind, he's like, yeah, was Ben just going to go out of his mind and be like, go kiss her, bro? Ha ha ha. Like, he doesn't know what he's going to do. So sure enough, he's like, truth. And he's looking at him like, yo, you got to chill. And so Ben keeps it pretty easy. First round, he's like easing into it. And he's just like, be honest, in the last couple exams, he's like, truth, did you cheat on any of your exams? And almost like it is a good question, as it's like kind of juicy, but it's also, Kevin was just like washed over with relief. He knew he wasn't out of the forest yet. Far from being out of the woods on this one, no question. However, he was like right off the bat, not a bad place to start. So he's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, I was going pretty strong. But then I'll be honest, guys, during my Spanish quiz, like my exam, I completely forgot like the vocab of chapter 11. So I did go to the bathroom and I did have my phone out. But like, and they were like, ooh, like, oh my God, you did what? Baby, all that kind of stuff. They go around, super easy. Now it's time for Kevin again. So Ben's like, truth or dare? So Kevin, once again, is playing it safe, says truth. And he's like, are there any feelings you have for anyone that in this room that you have not confessed yet? Boom! Drops a bomb. So at this point, like Ben could not be more blatant. And Kevin is just blown away because the first question, completely unrelated. And he kind of knew that Ben was going to poke around, but he basically just like, kaboom! Right bowling ball right down the middle, kablam! Blows open the center here, going in for the checkmate right away. Buddy just did a crazy, he sacrificed the rook moment, like bam, completely unexpected. Kevin's playing massive defense right now because he's like, I gotta make sure I don't seem too startled. Kate and Rosie look at each other and he's like, shoot, dude, what are you doing? So, of course, Kevin is like, denies it. He's like, nah, bro, like, you wasted a question. Like, you could have asked something else. But, like, the way he delivers it, like, he's like, nah, dude, like, you're crazy, bro. You wasted the question. Like, it's just, like, bad. So he's like, Kate, truth or dare? And she's like, dare. And he's like, go, and he just is completely fumbling. And Ben's like, okay, I'll take it, since Kevin is completely floored for some reason. Wink. And Kevin's like, bro. He's like, oh, I'll take the dare. And he's like, oh my God, it's so bad. He's like, dare, Kate, you go upstairs and talk with me for 2 minutes. And she's like, okay. So then they both leave, and it's just Kevin and Rosie sitting there. And he's like, he's like, what was that all about? He's kind of regaining his composure a bit too. Yeah, so he's pulling a little bit together, and Rosie's like, I don't know, like, he's being weird. He's like, I don't know what they're up to, but I think that they're up to something. And like, Kevin's not sure if he's just like assessing the vibes wrong, but like, the vibes aren't bad. It's like, she's a little smiley. He can't tell if she's like subtly picked up on something, and it's good, which Kevin's heart starts to race a little bit because he's like, wait a minute. I thought I just got nuked in the face. Like, I thought I just got an atomic bomb thrown into my face by my boy Ben, and then he just dropped another bomb in my face, like, immediately after, but maybe this is good. But he's like, no, let's not jump to conclusions. Let's just try to stabilize the situation. I can pivot out of this. So he really just is like, okay, like they've been up there for a second. Haha, they're talking about like small talk, whatever. It's fine. Kevin's just like, oh, we never talked about this. How are your exams? Like, it never came up. Whatever. They have small talk. And then the door opens up. And Kate and Ben walk downstairs. And Kate has this like big mischievous smile on her face. And that's when Kevin just figured out right away. He's like, bro. He's like, no way, you just... Kevin's like, bro, I knew that Ben was going to like mess with some stuff. But like, dude, he is going hard. And anyways, so next, since it's Kate, to the person to the left of her, she's like, truth or dare? And Rosie's like, truth. And she's like, try again. At this point, Kevin's like, whoa, what do you mean try again? She's like, dare, I guess? And she's like, I dare you to talk to me upstairs for 2 minutes. And Kevin's like, bro. So they both get up and leave. And Ben is just sitting there, and he's just smiling. And Kevin's like, he's like, dude, what are you doing? And Ben's like, like, nope, can't say anything. It would break the rules of truth or dare. He's like, screw the rules of truth or dare, dude. Like, I got to know what's going on. This is becoming a very tense situation. You've blown my cover like crazy. Like, someone would have to be an idiot not to know something's going on. And Ben just looks at him smiling. He's like, I'm not going to break the rules of truth or dare, but I will say this. You're welcome. And at this point, I don't think Kevin realized what Ben meant by you're welcome. I think he was like, bro, like, this is not what I want. I don't think he realized that Ben meant you're welcome as if, like, he could see the future a little bit. But he's got the Attack Titan Eren Yeager future sense going on right now. Maybe he had a little information that Kevin didn't. Anyways, comes downstairs, the two girls come down, whatever. The vibes are so weird, but not a bad way. Kevin's like so uncomfortable that he's like kind of assessing these vibes in a bad way. But, looking back at it, actually pretty good vibes. And so sure enough, right, they're back down there. And then finally it goes around and it goes around one more time. And this time goes back to Ben, whatever, something dumb. Then Ben is like, oh, truth or dare. And Kevin's like, dare at this point, like whatever. And he's like, oh, like, I dare you to, and he says something stupid or random, like sneak up to where, Rosie's parents are, like walk by them and not get caught. Something really tame. So there was two things that at first Kevin was so relieved. He's like, great. So he runs upstairs. And as he's running upstairs and he's like doing it, whatever, he thinks to himself, wait a minute. Did Ben just try to get me out of the room so that the three of them could talk? And he's like, something is up. So anyways, he kind of like does it, whatever, but then he sneaks back to the door of the basement and tries to listen in. And the only thing he hears is Ben say, yeah, that sounds like a plan. And then just dead silence from there. And he's like, bruh, shoot, because he missed it, but he knows that something's up. So he walks down the stairs and he sits down. Anyways, goes around again, and it's, Kevin says like truth or dare to Kate or whatever, or to, I think it was to Rosie, and just whatever, right? Something's going on. And that's when Kate now asks for truth or dare for Rosie. And she's like, truth or dare? And then Rosie very confidently says, dare. And Kate's like, okay, here's the dare. I want you to go into that closet. Like, she says, Ben and I are going to leave. You're going to go into that closet. And then she points at Kevin and says, so are you, for 7 minutes, and we're turning off the lights. 7 minutes in heaven. That's the dare. You guys got a joint dare. And Kevin's like, wait, like, how am I dared in? It's not my turn yet. And Ben's like, oh, well, I'll just do my turn early. Yeah, that's also truth or dare. And Kevin's like, truth. He's like, wrong, dare. You're doing that as well. So at this point, they're brute forcing this. He's like, oh my God. At this point, Kevin's like, wait a minute. They're all in on something, and this looks good. He's like, I could still get pranked. I could still get, screwed over in this. But maybe I just go ahead with this. So anyways, like, Ben and Kate are about to leave and be like, all right, saying your timer for 7 minutes. Like, it's your dare, whatever. You don't break the dare. Don't break the rules of the game. And as Ben's walking up, he goes right by Kevin's ear and whispers in, once again, you're welcome. And at this point, it started to click a little bit more with Kevin that he didn't mean you're welcome in the sense of like, I'm going to see what happens and roll the dice for you, but that it was almost like it was predetermined. He knew the hand that he was about to pull. He wasn't rolling dice. These dice were fixed. Anyways, sure enough, they're like, all right, like it's very awkward. Kevin's like, oh, well, you first. Like, I don't know. He's a pretty chill guy, I guess. That's at least how Kevin described himself, so who really knows? But he did admit, like, it was very awkward kind of going in or whatever. So they go in, they're like, oh, this is definitely something. And they sit down, and, like, Kevin's kind of talking a little bit awkwardly. But then he starts to realize that, like, Rosie is not feeling awkward. Or she's, like, kind of looking up at him, kind of having, like, a little bit of a smile. And that's when it clicked with Kevin. She knows what's up. Not only does she know what's up, she said yes to this happening when he was gone. Meaning, ... you already know. So I'm not gonna go into crazy detail, but let's just say that it was a win for my boy Kevin. He made it, let's go. But it went well. It was a great 7 minutes in heaven, whatever, right? So sure enough, right, for the rest of the night at the sleepover, Kate and Ben are just cracking jokes like crazy. Like the craziest jokes. But Kevin does not care. Because sure enough, the best situation ever happened. And it worked out. And yes, indeed. So yeah, a couple of weeks later, Kevin and Rosie start officially dating each other. And this is where a slightly awkward part happens, where Rosie has to explain to her parents and Kevin has to explain to his parents that, like, yeah, that girl that I was saying that I was super platonic with and that we were just friends and that you decided to allow me to go sleep over at his house, or for Rosie, like, allowed this random boy to sleep over, like, yeah, so we may or may not be dating. And both the parents were like, shocker, like, oh, that's so crazy. Like, we don't care. Like, you can do what you want. Like, it's cool. Good for you guys. So it actually went down perfectly fine. And I just want to say that, like, generally, I don't think Ben was in the right for doing this because it could have totally blown up. And I'm going to be honest, most situations do not end as perfectly as this one did. But this is one of these stories where things actually ended up good.